Hello, hello, hello. This is Gresh from the I Am CEO podcast, and I have a very special guest on the show today. I have Jennifer Garrett of Get Inside the Huddle. Jennifer, it's awesome to have you on the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Definitely super excited to have you on. And before we jumped in, I want to read a little bit more about Jen so you can hear about all the awesome things that she's doing. And Jen is an internationally recognized author, speaker, and leadership expert and brand architect who works with executives and professional athletes on how to push boundaries, build effective teams, optimize performance, and move the ball to reach higher levels of success in business and in life. Jennifer's background includes 7 degrees, Fortune 100 executive leadership experience, and military officer leadership as an Army lawyer. She is also the host of the Move the Ball podcast, a podcast that focuses on conversations with professional athletes, Fortune 500 C-suite leaders, and entrepreneurs on connecting the competitive athlete mentality to leadership for business, career, and personal success. Jen, are you ready to speak to the IMCO community?
I'm ready, and thank you for that wonderful introduction.
Well, you did all the hard work, so I just read the words. So I appreciate you for doing all the awesome things to kind of help so many, CC executives and leaders out. And what I wanted to do is just kind of rewind the clock, hear a little bit more on how you got started, what I call your CEO story.
Yeah, so first I'll step back. You mentioned that I had Fortune 100 executive experience. So I spent 20 years working in corporate America, a lot of different things, engineering, sales, marketing, business development. I am a lawyer too, so I've done legal work, transactional work. And I decided a couple of years ago that I was going to one day leave to be the CEO of the Move the Ball brand and really grow that. And what really was the turning point for me, because I loved my corporate career, had a great resume that I was building, found it fulfilling, because you hear a lot of stories about people talking about how they weren't fulfilled, right? For me, I enjoyed all of that. But what happened was my dad passed away very unexpectedly. And what I realized due to his unexpected passing is that the world keeps moving, whether you're in it or not. So what is the legacy that you want to leave? And I loved my corporate resume, but I wanted more than that. And I had published my book, Move the Ball, a few years back, was doing a bunch of speaking kind of as the side hustle, so to speak. And my employer, I worked for GE at the time. They were great. I did a lot of traveling around GE facilities doing speaking as well. And what I found was people started hashtagging Move the Ball. People started reaching out to me saying, hey, Jen, I moved the ball today. And to see it catch on was pretty neat. And so I thought, you know what? I have an opportunity to really create this brand and leave a legacy through a movement, a move the ball movement, and getting people thinking about how are they going to move the ball. Whether you know anything about sports or not, you can grasp the concept of, did you move a ball today or not? And so I decided to leave corporate America. I ended up leaving on what would have been my dad's birthday, which for me was just like the most important day, because it was my dad's passing that really set everything into motion.
And I definitely appreciate that, Jen, and everything, you talked about with your dad. And I imagine the symbolism of you being able to kind of start, the brand and the business and just kind of have that, lack of a better term, aha moment when you're able to understand the impact that you can have and the impact that you want to have. It definitely seems like you have been able to do that for so many people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we all have those moments in our lives. We don't necessarily know when they're going to come, but they come and we have a decision to make. What are you going to do as a result of that aha moment? Are you going to continue the status quo? Or are you really going to reevaluate, assess, and think about, okay, how am I going to change where my direction is going to go as a result of this particular event or moment?
Yeah, absolutely. We always have those kind of fork in the road kind of moments where you have to decide which way you're going to go. And it's great to hear that you've been able to kind of build that brand and help people to kind of move the ball in their life and in their business. So I wanted to drill down a little bit more and hear a little bit more on how you work with your clients and what the brand represents and what exactly you do to support the clients you work with.
Yeah, that's a great question. So everything that I do is under this theme of moving the ball. So there's a number of different things that I work with. So I do a lot of working with organizations in a business context on how are we going to move your business to that next level. So strategic planning, brand creation, looking at product differentiation. Also in terms of productivity and working with your employees and making sure that they're at their optimum level. So I'll bucketize that more in like higher performance, if you will. And then I work with professional athletes as well, and individuals, executives on their branding, whether that be their business brand outside of the corporate environment or their personal brand. For example, with athletes, they play. I work with a lot of NFL athletes mostly, but I do work with other professional athletes as well. And that for football, it's a short career. The average NFL career is 2 years. So it's not very long. And I think as time has continued on, a lot of these young men have realized, okay, this isn't going to be the thing that's going to set me up for life. So now I need to make sure that I'm thinking about what's next. And so a lot of them have, depending on, how much success they've had, they have this brand around it. So what do they do beyond that brand, whether it's going into entrepreneurship, whether it's being a speaker and having a speaker platform? I work with that on creating that brand and putting together that playbook, and how are you going to build that to be successful?
Yeah, that's absolutely huge. And as you said, we all have those moments in life, and especially for a lot of athletes, it's something you've been doing for probably your entire life. And then you have that moment where you're not going to be playing, the game anymore. You have to figure out what's next and how are you going to continue. So I love that you're able to kind of help. It sounds like empower, the athletes, but also the executives and people as well too on how exactly to do that and what that looks like.
Absolutely. And two, you'll find executives decide to go and have a second career at some point, right? They're like, okay, I've done this, and let me go figure out what's something new and exciting that I can do to learn and grow, and a new passion. And so I'll work with executives too on that same type of thing, not just athletes. But it's great to be able to connect. Why I do this is I love connecting with people, and I love helping them to pursue what they're passionate about, and kind of seeing their success and their journey, because as we know, life is about a journey, not the destination, right? And so just seeing the progression over time and knowing that I've been able to play a small part in effectuating that journey and the outcomes that they have, for me, that's just so rewarding. And that's why I do this.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I love what you said earlier too about like even if you're not an athlete, as you said so well, you still can move the ball. You still can do those things to get to that next step and pivot and change and do whatever needs to be done for you to get to wherever, success means as an executive or an athlete or even
Mm-hmm.
somebody that's a leader. So I wanted to ask you for what I call now your secret sauce. And this could be for yourself personally or their business or a combination of both. But what do you feel kind of sets you apart and makes you unique?
Well, I think a couple things. One, because my background is so diverse, I mean, 7 degrees, that means I'm a little crazy. Two, but I've done a lot of different things in my life, which have allowed me to really have a different perspective than other people. And one of the things that was really helpful in my corporate career was I was able to ask questions that other people didn't think about. So I like to say, I'll drive non-traditional thinking questions and critical thinking because of this diverse set of expertise that I have. So that really set me apart from a business acumen, leadership standpoint. And then when working with athletes, I'm a big football person, but I know a lot about different sports and that competitive athlete mentality. And it's driving those critical thinking points. But I've also taken so many lessons away from sports and applied them to my own life, so I can really connect with. So I didn't play professional football, right? I didn't play semi, but the lessons that I learned were all from watching as a fan, being on the sideline, but I can still connect with people that played the game. And I think that's important when you work with someone. It's that connection, to get them to trust you, to know that you are the one that can help them. And so I think I do that really well just because of my whole expertise around sports as well as in the business environment.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And it's so funny you said that because I'm actually reading this book called Arrange now. And it kind of talks about how important it is for people that are able to have a diverse range of experiences, maybe 7 degrees or different, jobs and positions that they have. It gives them a unique perspective to be able to solve problems a lot of times because they're looking with different or varied eyes onto certain problems and solutions and coming up with those solutions to be able to kind of solve whatever those problems might be.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's important for everybody, no matter, whether you're executive or not, is to understand how do you bring differentiated value to the teams that you work in, whether, it's an executive team or you're just, an early career professional or whatever. You need to figure out how are you going to be different and what's going to set you apart so that people will recognize you as an expert in whatever, right? So they'll want you to be a part of their team, or opportunities will come your way.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I love how it sounds like that manifests itself into your podcast and what you do there, where you're having those conversations with the C-suite executives, the leaders, and the athletes as well too, on how they're able to kind of do that in their lives.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, podcasting, as you know, it's a fun experience, but you learn so much from people sharing their stories and their advice and their lessons. And so, I mean, I know that I learn and grow just as much as my audience does, because there's just so many great stories that my guests have shared and what they've taken away through their life experiences.
Yeah, I could definitely co-sign to that. Where I've learned probably more than the people that are listening as well too, just because you learn so much from the stories and the insight that people have.
Absolutely.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So I wanted to switch gears a little bit, and I wanted to ask you for what I call a CEO hack. So this could be like an app, a book, or a habit that you have, but what's something that makes you more effective and efficient?
I think something that makes me more effective and efficient is, well, I'm going to bundle it. It's a couple different things, but one is it's staying connected to your purpose, to your why every single day. When you wake up in the morning, what is it, what drives you, and reminding yourself of what drives you. You know, every podcast episode, I end it by saying, make sure that you suit up, you show up, and you move the ball. And so suiting up is you suit up with the right perspective, the right mentality, that positive mindset, but you're also connected to your why. And so your why is what's going to drive you no matter what happens throughout the day, good or bad, because you can't control all the external factors. But that why is going to keep you focused and keep you grounded. So that's the first part. And then the showing up is, you know, making sure that you're spending your time intentionally every single day. So you're not just going through the motions, right? You're saying yes to the right things. You're saying no to the things that don't serve you. I say no to more things than I say yes to, which is what you should do. And so it's really about maintaining that organization, that focus, and that intent on the things that are really going to help you to propel forward. And then the move the ball piece of that saying is if you show up with the right mindset or you suit up with the right mindset, you show up ready to work on the things that matter, you're going to move the ball.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I love how everything is in alignment, with that message and what it means, how it manifests itself in life and in business. Because I think so many times we don't realize that it can be really hard, I guess, to move the ball if you don't understand what your why is, because you might be moving the
Yeah,
ball completely where you don't want to go or not being
correct.
aware of it. So that intentionality, the understanding your why and being able to kind of see that progression and that progress is absolutely huge.
Absolutely. And the other thing is, you know, when you're tested, and we all have our moments where we're tested and we're like, what am I doing? Especially when you go on the entrepreneurship route, there might be more of those moments when you're trying to figure it out. And when you're still connected to that why, it's going to make you stay committed more so than those that don't have that connection and they're going to just give up.
Yeah, absolutely. You start to realize why, you're doing all the things through the really high highs and the really not so high lows that you
Mm-hmm.
kind of experience with, going through that journey, which is why I love how you talked about earlier that kind of, how sports can be like a metaphor for business and life and understanding that things don't always go the way you want them to go, but it's how you react, it's how you change and what you do to kind of help move the ball forward.
Right. And I think that's important too. It's not just about how you do that in business. It's in every aspect of your life, no matter, you know, whether you have a personal goal of weight loss or financial goals or whatever it is, like staying connected to the why is it that you're doing these particular things? And that why is going to keep you focused on whatever that goal is.
Absolutely. That would definitely be the North Star that
Mhm.
gives you that understanding of why you're doing exactly what you're doing. And so I want to ask you now for what I call a CEO nugget. So this could be a word of wisdom or piece of advice. It might be something you would tell a client, or if you hopped into a time machine, you might tell your younger business self.
Yeah, so I would say to trust the process is a big thing for me. You know, you have your process. Sometimes you make adjustments as you learn, right? But it's that consistency and application of that process that's going to get you the results that you want to go. Sometimes it's not going to happen day one or day 5 or 10, but it's that consistency which is what's going to drive the results that you're looking for. So you can't get caught up in the day to day. It's important to assess and reflect and see what's working, but you can't get frustrated and impatient. Right? We know that success takes time. So we always want it to happen more quickly than it does in most cases. And so you just have to stay true to that process and evolve as you need to evolve your process, but trust that your process, if you have a solid foundation and a solid process, it will get you to the results that you want.
Yeah, that's absolutely huge. I love how that ties in with the hack as well too, and just
Mm-hmm.
that why and understanding like why you're doing everything that you're doing, so that you can
Mm-hmm.
not get, I guess, discouraged throughout the process when things don't
Yes.
go as quickly as we want them to go. You understand that why you're doing it, and if you can lean on that, then you can understand that I will enjoy the process because I'm getting to a overall mission or a goal.
Right. And as you're going through the process, I mean, if something doesn't work out, then you take the lessons. It's all about those lessons. You know, there's a saying that says, failure is a lesson learned, success is a lesson applied. Right. So you have to learn from those failures or missteps along the way to get you to where you're trying to go. But it's still that consistency, that application of that strong process that you're putting in place.
Absolutely. And so now I wanted to ask you my absolute favorite question, which is the definition of what it means to be a CEO. And we're hoping to have different quote unquote CEOs on the show. So, Jen, what does being a CEO mean to you?
Well, I think being a CEO, first and foremost, is about being a strong leader, a foundational leader that's focused on taking and influencing your organization to whatever success looks like for you. And that success has different definitions for different people. But as the CEO, it is ultimately your responsibility, not only to drive performance, we obviously know that, but to be a great leader, to be an influential leader that aligns with the mission and the vision and the corporate values of your organization.
Yeah, I absolutely appreciate and love that definition because I think so many times we can forget all the, I guess, the parts and pieces of the organization and how that aligns with that mission and vision and what you're trying to do. And I think it basically calls on us to be really great leaders to be able to
Mhm.
drive that ship and to be able to make those things happen. And I think if you're not, being that great leader, then that's when sometimes things can fall off the rails.
Yeah, and I think too, when we have things like a pandemic that's thrown into the mix or these unforeseen circumstances and uncertainty, sometimes people lose sight of the need to be a great leader and the influence that they have because people are
Mhm.
looking to your leadership to carry them through the darkness, the negativity, the uncertainty. As we've seen, there's been a lot of change over the last year, a lot of adapting and evolving because we've had to. And so people look to the top, right, to see how are we going to continue to navigate the ship, to move the ball, to keep things moving in this new world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think during, difficult or less than ideal times might be a better way to say it. That's when you find out, that true leader and where they stand. But as you said so well, I think we are looking towards those leaders to be able to kind of direct the ship and what changes and things are going to happen because that's where you get somewhat some peace or at least knowledge that you are moving, the ball in the right direction.
Absolutely.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, Jen, truly appreciate that definition, and I appreciate your time even more. What I wanted to do is just pass you the mic, so to speak, just to see if there's anything additional you can let our readers and listeners know, and of course, how best they can get a hold of you and find out about your podcast and all the awesome things you're working on.
Sure. Well, thank you for that. I mean, I think the big thing for people to remember is you always have choices each day. And so, really, it's your choices that are going to drive the outcomes that you have in your personal life, in your business, with your team. So, I think it's important to stay mindful and aware of the choices that you're making and also the energy that you're putting out there, whether that's in the digital space or through your in person interactions. Because, again, I see so many leaders that have maybe slipped a little bit with what's going on over the past year. And it's like you are still the influencer. So remember the energy that you're bringing into each space and make sure that you're radiating positive vibes and that you're leveling up your team because as one of the things that I mentioned in my Move the Ball book is that great leaders are ones that bring energy that energize the people around them. So I think that's important.
Mhm.
As far as how you can get in touch with me, you can go to my website, which is getinsidethehuddle.com. There's always a sports reference. I do work with a lot of people that don't necessarily have a sports expertise or know anything about football. That just happens to be kind of how I got started. But so there's sports references throughout, but I do work with a lot of people that aren't sports savvy too. My podcast is called Move the Ball. Again, as you mentioned earlier, conversations with professional athletes, but also senior executives, C-suite leaders, as well as successful entrepreneurs on their journey, their life lessons, and how you can use their experiences and their advice to move the ball. And you can check out those at movetheballpodcast.com.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you so much again, Jen. We will have the links and information in the show notes as well too, so that everybody can follow up with you and all the awesome things that you're doing. But I truly appreciate that last reminder and just understanding the influence that we can have, especially as leaders, in so many different ways in life and in business and everything in between and all around. And I think once we understand that responsibility, we start to take those steps and that action towards that. That's when we really start to see phenomenal things happen. So appreciate that reminder, and I appreciate your time as well. And I hope you have a great rest of the day.
Well, thank you so much. It's been awesome being able to chat with you.